Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton, Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how you doing?
Well, Scott, I'm doing pretty good.
The Chiefs
Uh,
looked great yesterday, right?
yep, kind of funny. Nobody was talking about them before the beginning of the season, and if they were, it was pretty, whatever you want to call it, dismissive. So, to
Well,
all of
they're
you experts out there,
they have not gone anywhere. They are still the team we thought they were, dominant and vying for another Super Bowl championship. So,
we are who you
congrats.
thought we were. That's right.
The late coach Dennis Green, man, what a
Yep.
personality for the NFL. Well, congrats on a big week 1 win. Talk about big wins, big conversations. Today is the Supply Chain Buzz here, where every week we share some of the leading stories across global business. And Greg, we've got
Yep.
one heck of a guest joining us about 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Sebastian Bleser with Seven Senders. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed
he has
our
delayed his lunch to be with all of us. So, really appreciate that. But giving us a perspective on what's going on right in Europe and particularly with last mile. So, really interesting, and they have a pretty cool solution. I think
that's
we
right.
might talk a little bit about today too.
As Sebastian and the team over at Seven Centers likes to say, first choice in last mile. I like that tagline. But folks, get ready. We want to hear from you as well. So me and Greg will be chatting all things supply chain with our dear friend Sebastian, and we want to work in your perspective as well. Before we get started, Greg, we should share a couple things with our audience here, folks in the cheap seats or the club seats, the club boxes, I think, as you refer to it, since we're in football season, right?
Yes.
So first up, tomorrow, better business outcomes with blockchain, digital document provenance, one of Greg's favorite words around here. We're teaming up with Kevin L. Jackson, who hosts Digital Transformers, also our friends at TNS, Dealbox, and NSSX. We're going to be talking some very practical examples of how blockchain is powering big time outcomes across global business. So join us for that September 13th. That's tomorrow. 12 noon is free to join, but you got to register. Now, Greg, blockchain, everyone can use more practical examples of how that works, huh?
Yeah, no question. And provenance is one of the biggest ones, right? Is it what it says it is? Are you who you say you are? And where did you come from? So, I mean, I think that's, if you think about how blockchain started its usage with cryptocurrency, sorry if anyone's invested in that, but the whole point of that is to verify the currency's provenance, ownership, and kind of path through commerce. So,
Yep. So, folks, join in the conversation tomorrow at 12 noon. Register in the link in the comments. And then also, Greg, on a kind of a different angle here, we're very proud to be partnering with our friends at Vector Global Logistics and many others. This initiative here, leveraging logistics for Ukraine, it's about 6-7 months in the driving humanitarian aid, getting it to folks in Ukraine, Poland, and in the region. And Greg, we're working on updated numbers, but thus far over 300,000 pounds of targeted relief aid has made it across to folks in need. That is quite a noble mission, right?
yeah, it is. And I mean, it's dozens of containers worth of product. And the folks at Vector Logistics, Kuehne+Nagel, and some other companies have Hauppauge Lloyd have all contributed, and many just individuals and small companies as well.
Yep.
So if you think there's something you could do, or heck, if you just like to figure out what they're doing, tune in on one of these calls, right?
That's right. This is what Greg's talking about is the monthly planning calls. So the next one takes place tomorrow, September 13th, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Nice little warm up before the webinar. But folks, you don't have to give anything if you want to. If you're not in position to do that, and you want to tune in and join to offer up your expertise, your market intel, or just to sit back and kind of piece things together, that's perfectly fine. But this is an outstanding and very much needed mission that we're happy to support here. So check that out tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. All right. So, Greg, Again, we
Yes.
got a big guest at about 12:25, and Sebastian Bleser with Seven Cinders. We're going to be bringing them in about 20 minutes. We're going to say hello to a few folks. I see Big Show Bob Bova giving you a hard time about, man, you win one game, Greg.
Well, the good news is, Bob, you're going to get to see us win another one before next weekend. So we
That's
play the
right.
Chargers on Thursday. Hope you're not a Chargers fan.
One more personal point, and then we're going to get into one of our favorite topics. I got to give a shout out, Greg, to my cousin, Coach Reggie Shaw. He won his 100th game over the weekend as a high school football coach.
Wow.
100 wins. That's big time.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he leads a powerhouse in South Carolina called Burns High School up in the upstate. So we'll have to get in the game at some point soon, Greg. But hey, Reggie, Coach Shaw, heck of a job, and shout out from the whole team here.
What town in the upstate, Scott?
Oh goodness.
Or is it a rural school?
I want to say Dorman, but I could be wrong. I want to say the town of Dorman, South Carolina, but anyway, Burns is known. Heck, even I, who am not a high school football expert, but even when I was matriculating through South Aiken High School, we knew about Burns because of just how great of a track record they've had, and of course, you got a Hall of Fame coach to be, and Coach Shaw. That's quite a combination, right?
Yeah, that's impressive.
Okay, so speaking of folks we want to recognize, let's say hello to a few folks, and then we're going to talk about National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, Greg, which is 1 week's never enough, but we're going to talk a little about that. Let's see here. Jonathan tuned back in with us via Louisiana. Great to see you, Jonathan. Greg, one of our faves here, right?
Yeah, Shelly from Colorado. Let's see. Always with some insight. So no pressure, Shelly, but expect to hear it today.
No pressure at all. And hey, our Cracker Jack research team has corrected me. It is in Duncan, South Carolina. Burns High School is in Duncan. Thank you very much for that. So Shelly, welcome. Of course, Catherine, Amanda, Chantel, Clay, you name it, the whole production team helping to make today's show happen. Catherine says, happy Monday and happy Buzz Day. It's kind of catching on, Greg.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt, don't we? Right?
We do.
Get your buzz on.
Hey, Scott. Scott, great to have you back via LinkedIn. Hope this finds you well. Let us know where you're tuned in from. We got T Squared. Bring on purposefully spelled the nourishment. Okay.
Bring on the nourishment.
Gotcha. Kind of like a double syllable there. I gotcha.
Yeah. He wants to embody the Southern spirit, right?
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, hey, always love when T Squared's with us. He holds down the fort for us at YouTube. Big Show Bob Bova saying Chargers 35, Chiefs 28. So you want to make a little friendly wager here, Greg?
Nah. No. I'm going to be too busy watching the game.
Okay. All right. So,
Bob, but it won't be that. I can guarantee you that.
We'll check back in with you there.
They couldn't score 35 against the Raiders. So.
Ooh. All right. We'll save that. So, Bob, keep it coming. Hey, Glormar, great to have you here. I really enjoyed one of your responses to one of Greg's supply chain commentaries last week. You were talking about your background in production before you transitioned over to supply chain. Greg.
Right. How she kind of disliked, and I can imagine that the safety people, right, in food production, but then switched, went to the dark side and then realized how important that role is, right?
So keep sharing that.
Food safety, big risk in the supply chain, right? And I think it's good that people like Glormar have seen that side and can preach the gospel to the people on the food production side, why it is so important, right?
Yep. I'm with you.
If they don't think it's important, just say formula. That's all you gotta say.
Well, as much as I love you leading with your commentary Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right, on LinkedIn. So folks, you got to connect with or follow Greg to get that. I really love all the responses you get, and folks are sharing their views on what you've shared. It's a incredible discussion.
We had was it last week before last, we had like 35,000 people view one of those commentaries. It was about retailers and what's kind of coming in the economy. So I think it hit maybe a very timely button. But a lot of people had views and insights on that.
Agreed. So y'all check that out. Okay, we're going to hit a couple of these really quick, and then we're going to move into a big week here. So, hey, I know we can't hit everybody, but thank y'all for being here. James Jones from Annapolis, great to have you back. Dr. Julia, great to see you here. She's multitasking. So, hey, we get that. Chad Mullins, also a big Chiefs fan, also a big Kansas fan. I guess Kansas best start in
Hey,
many years.
you won a football game? Holy mackerel. I have to look at that.
We'll have to check that out.
Congratulations. Yeah.
GP, old Gene Pledger's back with us. Great to see you here. Bama. Hey, yeah, Gene's
They
a Bama
escaped
fan.
with just barely escaped with their lives.
Just right. But hey, a win. I'll take as a Clemson fan, I will take an ugly win. It's better than a big upset loss, right? But great to see you here, Gene. And
they don't put a review next to it, just a W.
That's right. I'll steal that from you. Jonathan says, how'd y'all like that Saints block? Who dat? All right. So Jonathan, hey,
that's cold.
It hurt us in the heart. At least, I'm a bandwagon Falcons fan, but that was an ugly fourth quarter for sure. Okay. So welcome everybody. We got a great conversation teed up and want to hear from you. But I want to shift gears, Greg, because today or this week rather, National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, right? And It's never, 1 week's never enough, but at least it's great that it's on the calendar each year. And in fact, it's on the calendar already for the next several years. So you can head over to many resources, including trucking.com, if you want to go ahead and add it to yours. It runs this year of September 11th through the 17th. Now, we owe quite a bit, Greg, to the 3.6 million men and women that make up the trucking community. And that figure is just here in the States. We got to find new ways of thanking all the truckers. The global the backbone of global supply chain for sure, right? I think it's upwards of 70% of all freight is conveyed at some point with trucks. So I mean, imagine if that big old cog stopped turning. So hey, if you're listening to us driving the truck right now, or if you're in the comments or whatever, maybe you're checking out the replay, know that we are very grateful for what you do. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to thank them is to get a 10-car lead on them before you pull back into their lane when you pass them. That's probably, I think they'd really appreciate something that basic. Also, they love it when you do this. I mean, they do. And I'm like a 12-year-old kid, man, every time.
I love that. But, my kids are going to be taught the right way, right? So I can't wait to hear the air horns over the next few days. But, Greg, one of the things that I love that we did, we've interviewed probably 4 or 5 truck drivers over the last year, right? That's a very interesting and valuable perspective to share with our global family. Today, we released one of our favorite interviews. If you remember April Coolidge, who drove an award-winning professional truck driver that drove for Walmart. You remember that interview?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Family affair, that, right? Her dad was a driver.
Yes, and inspired her. In fact, Greg, as I was giving that a listen yesterday, as we were getting ready to drop, she went to her dad and said, "Hey, I want to do." She was in real estate, and she was like, "I want to do what you do. I want to drive a truck." And at first, he was like, "No, you're not serious." But she was like, "Dad, I'm dead serious, right?"
Yeah.
And fast forward, I think she started driving in 2011. I think is that time frame. And now she's been recognized by Walmart and PepsiCo and some other groups as quite the ambassador for the truck driving community, which is, and she, Greg, do you remember just beyond all of her expertise, her personality is just, it kind of pulls you in, right?
Yeah. I mean, she has a really philosophical perspective on driving and what to do. And I think she's a great ambassador for the industry, right? Because
agreed.
She came to it with a totally different business perspective, but also with the knowledge of kind of what her dad did and endured and, struggled through and all those kinds of things. So I think she's a hell of a driver. I mean, she's won some actual driving awards as well, right?
Yep.
Like all that trick driving they do, which I love to
The
watch.
rodeos.
Yes. Yeah.
it's,
I
it's,
love watching that. It
it's
is
fascinating.
really and truly impressive to watch these really, really good drivers
Well, hey,
practice their craft.
find a way, folks, this week, every week, but find a way this week in particular to show your appreciation for all that they do for global business. That's right. That's right, Greg. Okay. So I wish this next story was as lighthearted as what we were just chatting about. So, Greg, I'm going to tee this up, and then I'd love to get your take here.
Yep.
So from roads to rails, right? There's a big potential strike coming up by the end of the week if the railroad companies and all the industry unions cannot agree to a new labor deal. So as of this past weekend, 5 of the railroad industry's union groups have struck a deal, which reportedly includes a 24% pay raise over 5 years, along with back pay, right? But the other unions, which haven't signed a new agreement yet, which these other unions represent the biggest bulk of the sector's workforce.
Right. About 115,000 drivers, right? Something
That's
like
right.
that.
That's right. They're saying that potential new deals, right, that some have already agreed to, do not address quality of life measures involving workload and limited time off. Those unions can go on strike as early as September 16th, which is Friday, right? Now, many in industry, including our friend John Gold with the National Retail Federation, well, they're calling for Congress to intervene to avoid any lengthy disruption. One last note, Greg, and I'll get your take. I've reached out a couple friends in my, actually one of them from elementary school is a railroad engineer, and spent many years doing that. You know what's funny? He loved trains as a kid, and now he's doing what he's wanted to do his entire life. So I kind of put a line in with him to kind of speak to maybe some of the concerns that the labor side has. So we'll see if that person gets back. But Greg, your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, I think way back to my Uncle Billy, who, when he got back from Vietnam, went to work for what was then just called Santa Fe, but is now Burlington Northern Santa Fe, a Berkshire Hathaway company. And not an advert, just a notification, right? And he worked for many, many years without a contract. He was a conductor. So back when they still had cabooses, you had people who manned the caboose, and they were the conductor, and they, took everything pretty much behind the engine. So it's been a long haul, let us say, of decades and decades of either contract issues or lack of a contract with a lot of these companies. And I can tell you from experience, because my aunt lived very close to us, that, it's not an easy job. You're getting a call at 2:00 in the morning, and you got to be on the train, literally on the train, in an hour. So, and there's a number of things. The thing we have to think about is the volume of freight that this could impact. 476,000 trucks,
Right,
a day is what it would take to haul the same amount of freight to the destinations that are hauled each day by the railroads. So, and we know, as part of our last article, we have an incredible shortage of truck drivers, right? And we also know it's hard to find places to park or stop and rest as a truck driver, which is a necessity because of the work hour mandates.
right.
So where would we put an additional 476,000 trucks, even if we could find someone to drive them? So it's a serious issue. A lot of this is long-standing issues between not just the unions, but the workers and the railroads. So I don't know. I know it's John's job. I don't know if government intervention is the right answer, because back in the 90s, they did intervene and forced the railroads and the unions into binding arbitration, which should preclude any need for Congress specifically to act. Is just force them into binding arbitration, and then that solves the problem.
Kind of like with
railroads are provisioning for high value and high stakes, high security type items to be shipped otherwise, but again, the volume just isn't there. So It's tough. And I think, Scott, I can't help but think that we're not far from, I mean, this is a vehicle. These are vehicles that
Right.
travel on rails at a prescribed speed from one prescribed place to another. I can't help but feel like we may be also accelerating change in the industry towards automation,
Mm.
which is a necessity in this and the trucking industry anyway, but that it may accelerate it if the cost basis of labor goes up so substantially. They've already eliminated the caboose, largely eliminated conductors,
Mm.
and it's not like, except for excessive speed, a train can veer off course. So I wonder if the unions may not be overplaying their hand now. That it still could be a
Right.
decade or decades away that occurs, but it's still something to think about.
Excellent. Yeah. I love your commentary there and your analysis. I guess there are some similarities in terms of how it's a bit of a unique class of workers, like air traffic controllers, right?
Right. Exactly.
Back in the 80s, where a lot of folks know about that story. So we'll see how it plays out, right? But Friday is the date. Friday's the earliest date because it is a unique class. They cannot go on strike earlier than Friday, and there's a backstory there, which I'll save for another time. But Greg, great commentary, and that automation, that is an interesting thought as it applies to railroads.
Well, we have to consider it. Everyone is considering it as labor rates go up. I mean,
That's right.
someday your McDonald's hamburger may be made by a robot.
Mm.
Kind of tastes like it already, but I know you love the fries, Scott.
The fries.
Robots
Fries.
will never take over making
That's right.
fries.
But it's interesting. There are a couple of bots that I'm not sure if McDonald's is the franchise that's been experimenting. But there are some bots in some fast food restaurant that they've been experimenting with making French fries. Also saw something recently. I guess it was on YouTube maybe, but there is a pizza chain that's growing that is all robotic. How about that? Some folks will be rolling in their graves, Greg. I don't know.
How do you get a robot to?
I don't know. But
Probably not as entertaining as when somebody throws the dough up in the air, right?
Right.
Actually, I read an article, it was maybe a year or more ago, about an Indian restaurant that is using robots to serve the tables. They are your waiter, server.
Wow.
What would they server?
Well, to your point, everyone's got to consider it, right? All the turmoil across the labor market and so many different aspects and avenues of the labor market. So, okay. So I want to share a couple quick comments, and then we're going to roll right into Sebastian Bleser with Seven Cinders. So y'all stick around with us. Gene is owning up of how ugly of a win that was, the Bama win versus Texas. It was a great game to watch, though, Greg. It was a great game to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this. And Gene, I love you like a brother. I was brought up hating Texas because most people from Oklahoma and Kansas and Nebraska hate Texas. But I was actually pulling for Texas because that's such a huge benefit for Georgia, of course.
Right? The Bulldogs.
So it was a very painful game to watch. It was a painful game in that it was sloppy on both sides, frankly. Right. But they both kind of came together, they kind of pulled it together at the end, and each one towards the end did great work. Alabama is just
stacked as always.
They are just unstoppable, aren't they? I mean,
always. Hey folks, check out, we also dropped a link where you can find, again, this is the American Trucking Association. It's one of the preeminent groups that represent the industry. Check that out. You can find resources and hit facts and figures, including some best practices of how you can show your love for truckers. And Glormar says, hey, goodness, I had no idea it was Truck Drivers Appreciation Week. Sad to say, but this is another group of very important people that are not appreciated enough. Amen. They probably don't even know that this is their week. My husband hasn't even mentioned it.
No way,
man. So we got some work to do. Glormar, appreciate you sharing.
Boy, think about that. That's like missing Independence Day because you forgot you're right.
So
we got to really press this up. Seriously.
We do. We absolutely do. Jonathan says Greg is a very smart man, and Shelley goes, "Hey, I agree with you, Jonathan." So Greg getting some love from folks in
Thanks,
the
gang.
club seats.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so with no further ado, Greg, I'm really looking forward to our guest that's going to join us here today.
Yep.
We really enjoyed the pre-show conversation, so I want to welcome in Sebastian Bleser, Vice President, Supply Chain Excellence with Seven Cinders. Hey, Sebastian, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Scott. Morning, Greg. Very well. How you folks doing?
We're doing wonderful.
Yeah, great. It's evening where you are, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I just wanted to
So,
give you the
folks, we're
feeling that all
keeping
of the days ahead of you. So
days
Sebastian,
and decades in some cases.
fair enough.
We're
Yeah,
keeping
great.
Sebastian from dinner, so we better make good use of his time, folks. So if you've got something you want to ask him,
We're going to be
offer it up.
very efficient, aren't we, Greg? Very
Yes.
efficient. But we've also come to really appreciate Sebastian's sense of humor, which showcased itself in the pre-show. But hey, all that aside, Sebastian, what intrigues us, since you shared it with us a couple weeks ago, given all the great work you do in your executive role with Seven Cinders, which we're going to touch on in just a second, man, you double down on weekends. Tell us about what you love to do in your off time, I'll call it.
sure thing, love to. I'm a paramedic. I'm a professional paramedic. I started working there ahead of business school, and I kept doing it because there is pretty much the best contrast to what I'm doing every day. It's not like I don't like my job. I generally do, but like driving shifts on the ambulance is so much different. You get to interact with so many different people. It's super rewarding, and it puts you in situations where you typically would never find yourself in the, let's say, controlled lives we're having. So I really appreciate that. It ensures I stay grounded, and it's so rewarding to interact with these people.
Man, first responder, Greg. What's your
Yeah,
thoughts
right.
on that?
Well, I mean, I'm curious. Is it something you do? I mean, on call? Is it an on call kind of thing, or do you do it on a schedule, or how do you fit it in? I just can't even imagine.
It's a tight schedule, and my kids are kind of torn between thinking I'm a hero and complaining about being away too often. But it's on duty. It's scheduled, so I spend my day or my night on one of the stations, and whenever a call comes in, we jump on the van, hit the lights, and off we go.
Man.
Wow, that's outstanding. Yeah, that's a great service to the community. As you said, it's got to be incredibly rewarding. And I think really an interesting contrast from what can be sort of ethereal or theoretical in supply chain, even though we face real struggles, right? They're out there, right? We're not on top of them or rolling up to them with lights on. So
right.
Sometimes it feels like it, but I bet you can put that in stark relief by actually being out there doing that.
Well, I'm just going to share along those lines, Greg. Shelley's like, man, that's quite a juxtaposition, Sebastian. It really is. And if I knew what juxtaposition was, I'd
Contrast.
I'm kidding. So, but Shelley, I agree with you. And really, I do. I admire. I tell you, the giving doesn't stop at 5 p.m. You know, your time. I mean, to serve your community like that, which there's a great need for first responders everywhere. We can really, really appreciate that. So, Sebastian, thanks for sharing with us. I'm glad we had asked that question, Greg, in the pre-show to find out about it. But
yeah,
no appreciate you sharing. All right. But we got to get to work. We got to talk about, there's so much going on in global supply chain, especially this time of year. And I want to share our first story, Sebastian, we're going to be talking with you about. It's all about peak season, right? Peak season. I want to start with some of these projections from Logistics Management Magazine here. So, Sebastian, tell us more about what you saw here and then give us your take about peak.
Sure thing. So Logistics Management has been conducting a survey, working with more than 100 logistics service providers from first mile to last mile, basically trying to understand what people are expecting from peak 2022 to understand what it's going to be like. The outcome is kind of undecided whether it's going to be significantly different from the peak that we've seen last year in terms of volume and overall workload. What is evident within all the feedback that they collected, though, is that there is a high level of uncertainty for around what peak is going to be like, and especially customer behavior, and last not least, how to handle your entire supply chain. And particularly among the things that were mentioned, it is evident that people are concerned about their inbound supply chains. You folks been mentioning the railroad transportation, and just like that, the sea freight business is in big trouble. We are seeing congestions all across the freight routes, and the main problem here is that China has been speeding up their export rapidly, while the rest of the world was apparently unable to digest all the volume that they are producing. What we're seeing is we are short of cargo vessel capacity. We are lacking ocean containers. They are basically anywhere, but not in the place where we need them. And the same applies for the trucks. And I just came across some figures the other day that basically says 90% of all of our goods are transported on the vessel at some point of time. And that's massive. And then if you look at the current situation where we're seeing more than 14% of the current ships currently in transit are being delayed, and that's going to have a significant knock-on effect on our economy. We're well ahead of peak. So the advice that they are giving is bringing in early your peak is actually already too late. If you decide on pulling in your inbound volume today, you're pretty much lost. At the same time, your warehouses are probably almost half full, if not more, because you're still busy selling the stuff from last peak that came in late. So that leads to a very unique situation where we realize too late that we're in a difficult situation. Then it's like deciding between a rock and a hard place. Ultimately, you always need to take a risk one way or the other. And just trying to increase your shop floor size to take in more volume isn't working either. I'm not sure about you folks, but at least around here, warehouse capacity is as short as truck drivers or any other resource you might be seeking.
Okay, Sebastian, that was quite a snippet. A lot of stuff we can dive into. Greg, I'm gonna get your take in just a second. I want to add just a little bit of context. So if we go back to the article here, so the logistics management research surveyed over 100 industry stakeholders across supply chain, all different sectors, right? 45% expect a more active peak season than last year. 35% expect it to be about the same, and 20% say it'll be less active. But Greg, and by the way, Greg, I tried to capture the tidal wave. To be accurate, it should be like tidal wave after tidal wave. But hey, there wasn't a good graphic handy. Your take here on what Sebastian was sharing, Greg.
I think what's important is who they interviewed, right? So it's freight, transportation, logistics, and supply chain stakeholders. So, and the word that they used, more active, because I happen to believe that sales will be down significantly from 2021, but that I don't think that matters when it comes to activity in terms of logistics, because the ships, they're still showing up. I know we haven't done the global Hilton Head freight constriction
index
network index for a long time, but let me assure you that number continues to grow, and it's exactly what Sebastian is talking about. And we've been talking since it seems like April about getting goods here for peak, right? And then the article that I was just telling our listeners about from a week before last was about how exactly the other issue that Sebastian's talking about, which is retailers in particular, but other shippers as well, have so misjudged demand that they're overstocked on, it seems like, everything that's not selling. I think I may have exposed that I'm taking advantage of that a little bit for patio furniture.
Right. Everybody's getting patio furniture for Christmas, right, Greg?
They should, because by then it'll be 70% off. And there will still be plenty of it. And home goods, right? Anything from a bookshelf to, tchotchkes will be super cheap. So I think, yes, you should really think about those items. But the retailers have had those items since the beginning of the year, to Sebastian, your point, and they don't have the room for these other goods. So they're flooding the marketplace with promotion right now, which will take up the dwindling budget of people in an inflationary time and will have an impact on their ability to buy Christmas presents. In fact, some consumers are buying Christmas presents now knowing that the price will be 11 to 20% higher by the time Christmas season comes around. But none of that matters when we're talking about freight, because the freight still has to go somewhere or even sit somewhere. And believe it or not, sitting freight is still activity. So it will be an incredibly active, from a physical logistics time from now on, shifting inventories from warehouses to stores, or stores to consumers, or around warehouses, or finding a place to put them, or simply paying to have them sit in yards or on ships, or wherever they may be being held. So regardless of what sales look like, it's going to be a crazy.
Yep.
That's all I can think of. It's going to be a crazy peak season for freight logistics.
I agree with you, Greg and Sebastian. Hey, Sebastian, I'm going to give you the final word in just a second. I want to go back to what T Squared shared. Thank you, T Squared. He's given me the definition of juxtaposition, proximity for contrasting and or comparing. Thank you.
Now we have to look up proximity, Scott.
Right.
Keep them coming, Tyrone.
Yeah, that's right. One other thought. Certainly, one thing that is certain out there is the amount of uncertainty that's in the market, right? We talked about it plenty of times, right? Economic conditions, inflation. What's that going? What impact will that have on this post-pandemic environment we're in, where the shopping behaviors are going to be different in many cases in the last couple of years? So, goodness gracious! But Sebastian, your thought on, especially on Greg's point there, that it depends on what you deem as active, right? Activity still has to take place, right?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest things, because everything that's in transit anywhere will jam the system even further. We've only been talking about congestions on the ocean highways. We haven't talked about congestions on the actual highways. You look at your train stations, look at any intermodal hub you're having. We're jamming up all across the system, and unless we find the magic key to solve that riddle, it's going to be even more tricky once we move into Christmas season.
Maybe it's packaged in one of those Willy Wonka chocolate bars. Maybe that's where the magic key might be. We'll see. All right. So Sebastian and Craig, I got to keep going. I saw that movie over the weekend. All right.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I sure did.
The original or the Johnny Depp version?
There's only one.
I agree.
In my book, at least. The original is certainly a classic. Okay. I want to share this Forbes article, Sebastian and Greg. Now, this is a really interesting article that touched on some of the biggest mistakes retailers can make, especially when it comes to peak prep. Don't try to say that too fast. And it really centered on a interview with Mark Gorlin, who founded and serves as CEO of Roadie, who interviewed with the author. So, Sebastian, give us the gist of this article and this interview here, and your take on it.
Yeah, well, it's super interesting one, and very much a contrast to the logistics management piece. They've been looking into consumer behavior and their expectations, so to speak. And what we're seeing is that despite the current recession and everything we're seeing in the news, only some 20% of consumers are actually planning to cut their expenses for Christmas, while another 12% even want to spend more money than they did in previous year. But across all of them, more than 50% of the consumers believe that there will be shortages of supply across various goods for at least the next 6 to 12 months. And that will have a significant impact on consumer behavior and also how we are supposed to be delivering peak. Additionally, they identified a couple of elements that will impact consumer behavior. If you look at the ever-increasing gas prices, chances of someone driving around a couple of brick-and-mortar stores trying to find that very item they are looking for are somewhat small. Additionally, all of these small stores are super congested with a ton of items, while there's hardly anyone walking around trying to sell you the item you're looking for. So that's not the most attractive offer you can make to a consumer. So what's going to happen? They'll move into the e-commerce world again. That's going to, again, bring an uplift to all of these pure e-commerce players, and also anyone who's doing a good job when it comes to omni-channel. But now taking a look at how these people should solve the challenges of peak, and that's where Mark Gorlin gave some pretty interesting insights. It's basically trying to identify scenarios that you can use for building your strategy for overcoming all of the problems you'll be facing. what he's stating is that while 2020 has been the biggest failure of last mile because no one was expecting the volume and people have been ramping up the last mile heavily, then the year after we've seen the first mile fall apart. In the end, again, you were unable to connect all the loose ends and parcels didn't get where they belong to. So his advice is, and I definitely agree with that, build your scenario for ensuring that you're able to nail your plan. Define your strategy on how to get your SKUs out to the customer. And that requires a diverse set of last mile partners, as it does for any first mile partner. And he's advising you to look for a diversified portfolio of service providers, whether it's last mile or whether it's about your inbound supply chain. You need to ensure that you're able to inbound the goods that you want to have, build your strategy for taking them into your stock, ensuring you're able to process them on time. Remember, we're still lacking blue collars for that, and have a plan ready for delivering on the last mile. Ultimately, and I agree with the second piece of advice he's giving, it's about having your operations or supply chain team partner with sales. Because if you manage to pull peak early, if you start selling weeks ahead of Black Friday, you'll be able to even out the demand. You'll flatten the curve. You will not need to onboard as many associates. You will not need to have that much transportation capacity for a single week of the year. And chances of securing that capacity, at least over here in Europe, are kind of small if you don't start planning on time. And I could not agree more with the points he's doing here. It's a pretty grim market situation, whether you look into transportation capacity or labor. And if you fail in delivering a plan that helps you to pull demand early and are able to send out these goods to your customers, you're pretty much lost. Those last minute sales will not work the way they did last year. Plus, there is an increased chance of that demand not materializing and you again ending up with all of your money tied up somewhere in your warehouse, and you rather have it on your bank account.
Sebastian, wait, there is good news. And Greg, I'm going to get your take, but there's good news. You got to find the right partners. I love what Mark Gorland said, and Sebastian, you touched on 2 of the 3 here. 2020 was last mile, 2021 was first mile, but then he said, quote, for 2022, he said, 2022 is going to be its own special kind of weird. I like that phrase. Greg, between Mark and Sebastian, we got it covered. It seems like we've got lots of things we got to be doing. Your take, Greg.
I couldn't help, Sebastian, as you were talking, thinking of the first poignant lesson I learned about supply chain very early in my career, and that is to be successful in supply chain, you have to assume that everyone will fail you and provision for that eventuality. And I think essentially that's what Mark and Sebastian are saying is that we're going to see a lot more of the unexpected. We have to provision for the unexpected. We've seen this before. I mean, look, Amazon is in the parcel game because the 3 biggest players in the United States, FedEx, UPS, and USPS, all failed them multiple years in peak season. And so they felt the need to take matters into their own hands. That's not practical for every company out there, but diversifying your first mile and last mile, hell, middle mile, the whole thing. You should have a provision for all of those things because some carriers will be stronger regionally. Some carriers will be stronger for particular types of products. I can tell you that UPS has delivered the patio furniture that I've received in a U-Haul truck.
Really?
In guys not wearing brown shorts. So, everyone is struggling right now. And I think even the arguably largest logistics company in the world, DHL, I know that because of there's so much disruption in Europe and so much change in Europe, that's got to be a struggle. You have to count on some of these smaller carriers and some of the regional carriers and some of the specialty carriers, especially for delivery. That seems to be, as a consumer, just an observer as a consumer, I have to take off my supply chain expertise hat when I become a consumer because all I want is my stuff right now, right? Just like everybody
Don't want
else.
to solve problems, just want my stuff.
I don't care why
right.
It isn't here, right? And you have to consider the fact that you can make as many explanations, excuses, whatever you want to call them, as you want. Your consumers don't care, and it will still reflect on your brand. So these provisions that Sebastian has talked about, that Mark has talked about, I think they're exceptionally poignant this year.
All right, man, goodness gracious. Both of you are on fire today. I love it. And folks in the club seats, check this out. So Jonathan says, excellent points in regard to scenario planning, refine the market plan, and continually update market analysis to meet proper demand consensus, align strategy with voice of the customer. I love that. T Squared says, Greg nailed it. Everyone will fail you at least thrice. At least thrice. Let's see. Catherine also says they've had U-Haul deliveries there as well. I want to share. So, folks, we're talking about this article here. I'm pop it back up there. The big mistakes retailers make in preparing for holiday peak season. You can check that out via Forbes. I think we dropped the link as well. And as Sebastian, Greg, and I've been talking, it really features a conversation with Mark Gorlin, who founded Roadie. Here's an interesting thing, though. I love, Sebastian, what you said about partnering with sales teams, right? Because both of these articles we've talked about, Logistics Management and Forbes, they both talk about pulling that customer demand forward, right? And if you work with the sales team to not wait till here in the States, at least Black Friday, right? The day after Thanksgiving, don't wait till then. Do it now. Get those promotions out now. And in my mind, Greg and Sebastian, it kind of the notion of load balancing in manufacturing, right? Kind of balancing the customer demand. I think there's some kindred spirits there. All right. So where I want to go next, as we're coming down the home stretch with Sebastian from Seven Senders. Sebastian, you're offering up quite some, especially for dinner time, your time after probably a long Monday, Greg. I think Sebastian is bringing it here today, isn't he, Greg?
Well, he was asking, because, we are the way we are, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He was asking if we were always like this on Monday. I mean, he's got to be starving to death, and he is right on it. So yeah, definitely.
He is.
You can see I'm not passionate. I'm just hungry.
Well, so
we call it hangry.
Hey, we told y'all about Sebastian's sneaky sense of humor. Let's do this. I want to make sure for all maybe 3 people out there that aren't familiar with Seven Senders, let's make sure we drill in on what they do. So Sebastian, in a nutshell, tell us about Seven Senders.
Well, we pretty much solve all the problems we just discussed. We claim for ourselves to be the first choice on the last mile, and basically we act as a one-stop shop for anyone that is looking for cross-border fulfillment services. We select the right service provider for you based on your customer's profile, SKUs, you name it. Depending on the market, the demand might be largely different. We collect from your warehouse, so basically consolidating first mile volumes. We integrate into your tech systems. You don't need to worry about integrating with a ton of different carriers and then shifting volumes between them. We can handle all of that for you. We ensure it gets there on time, and in case there is any imbalance because you did not do your due diligence when it comes to forecasting, we'll ensure that we utilize our network for evening out the demand, ultimately ensuring we get all the parcels to where they belong to. The huge benefit of that, in contrast to building your very own logistical network, we are a vital part of many of these, and we are able to work with our partners to ensure that we actually inject your volumes. Imagine you being one of the service providers and a ton of companies collecting them from your front door. That's not convenient. Your yard is small, your warehouse is limited in capacity. Imagine you are one of the last mile service providers. Would you rather have like a ton of vans delivering a small quantity of parcels, or rather have a single partner delivering an FTL right at your front door? And to put some cream on top of it, we're basically ensuring that we have like a full transparency cockpit for you, so that you stay on top of your processes throughout the day, throughout the peak season.
Nice, Sebastian. I like you finished there with some cream on top, maybe even a cherry. Greg, as Sebastian rolled out some of the things they do, some of the problems they solve, some of the ways they partner with groups, what came to your mind there, Greg?
One throat to choke. That's what came to my mind. I mean, right? Instead of having this vast array of carriers, they coordinate and consolidate all of that for you. You can. I see it being more of an extension of your company because of that, because they can decide all those things that I was talking about: what region, what specialty, right? What speed, all of those various aspects that otherwise you have to focus on. And I think this is, frankly, a new era for supply chain where more companies will start to rely on companies like this as retailers. Let's just focus just on retailers, who are largely who distributes to consumers. What are we really good at? Designing, building, marketing, and selling products, right? As traditionally not great at logistics. And the logistics are the most complex part of the business. It doesn't matter how we designed it, what we built it, what color we made it, or how well we marketed and sold it, if we can't get it to people. So this is a critical part of it. And I think more and more retailers, except for the really, really large ones, are starting to see that you can consolidate with services like this that cover every aspect of that. You have, this is what we say in the US, you know, we're maybe a little bit aggressive, Sebastian. One throat to choke. You have one group who is accountable for that, and they are experts in that thing. And I think more retailers are already, but still should look for services like this to, you know, to let the pros do what they do best.
Yes. And, you know,
let him worry about who's going to fail him. Right.
Well, and when that throat is choked, you got Sebastian there, who's a certified paramedic that can, that can take care of folks.
Yeah.
But hey, kidding aside, you know what? One of my favorite things, Sebastian, and it's evident. It was evident a couple times now, a couple different conversations. You said you're hungry, not passionate. Man, you bring a ton of passion to the table. Clearly, you love solving some of these challenges we touched on here today, and that's the kind of partner. I don't know about y'all. That's the kind of partner I've sought out in my career. So love that. And we got some easy ways for folks to connect with Sebastian. Don't let him, if y'all do connect with Sebastian, don't let him hide that sense of humor, right? Call him out. You never know when it's gonna pop you. But we've got, y'all can venture over to the website, right, Sebastian? We're going to drop a link in the chat so folks can, we'll make it really helpful. One click away, right? Those are the kind of problems we like solving. One click away. Sebastian, you are active, I believe, on LinkedIn, and the company's active on LinkedIn. Is that right?
That is true. Yeah, and we're glad to connect and address all of the issues you might be facing, and I'm pretty sure we have the right solution for you to solve those.
No doubt. So the website we're dropping in the comments, the LinkedIn company page, so y'all can check out that. We're going to be dropping that link there. 7 Senders on LinkedIn, and of course Sebastian on LinkedIn as well. Sebastian Bleser. All right. So before we let Sebastian go, Greg, really have enjoyed the chat here today. Really have enjoyed what he's brought to the table. Kind of using these reads as vehicles to really, I mean, heck, he's really shown that Monday ain't nothing but a thing over there for Sebastian Bleser. Your favorite thing that Sebastian shared with us here today, Greg?
I think it's, I mean, aside from all of the brilliance that you've shared, Sebastian, I think what you're doing to enable kind of, I don't know, the average or everyman kind of retailer or e-commerce retailer. Look, I just dump them all in one bucket. You can call it m-commerce, e-commerce, global commerce, or bricks and mortar. It's just commerce is the way I see it these days. And I think it's great that there's an enablement for the smaller entities that can't build their own logistics teams. I think that message is really critical. And I have to tell you, I'm really tough on sales pitches, but I looked at your site and I get it. I get what you do. You allow someone to go, I want to do business in Germany, Netherlands, right? France, Austria, whatever. And you're there. And all they've got to do is say they want it, and it happens. And I think there are more and more types of providers that enable companies to get global or to expand their reach. And I think it's an incredible service because we need small businesses to succeed. Otherwise, it will be all Walmart, right? All
the time.
Amazon, all Alibaba, all those kind of things. I know you have a really big marketplace there too. I can not remember the name, but same kind of situation. They need competition, and small business to be able to compete needs this kind of assistance.
Well said, Greg. Okay, Sebastian Bleser, really enjoyed your point of view here today and your expertise you've shared. What's for dinner?
if I would go for the stereotype game, I'd say it's a schnitzel. But honestly, I haven't made my mind up yet. I'll find something.
Well, hey, kidding aside, really have enjoyed our chats. Thank you for being here today and sharing some of what you're seeing. And folks, check out and connect with Sebastian and Seven Senders. Thank you so much
for having me. I appreciate that. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right. So having a few connection issues that happens from time to time. Live programming is always fun. But folks, check out the resources we dropped there between Seven Senders website, which you can find a link in the comments. You're going to want to check out Seven Senders on LinkedIn as well, and connect with Sebastian Bleser via LinkedIn. I bet if he's anything like his in-person conversation, certainly someone to follow. One last thing before we sign off here today, Supply Chain Buzz for Monday, September 12th, 2022. I want to make sure y'all know about our new, maybe we stop saying the word new, 4 or 5 weeks in, our LinkedIn newsletter called With That Said, right? With That Said. So right now it's a Saturday morning publication. It's a smattering, some things we're doing here, some things that are really important out across the global marketplace, global industry. But you name it, we're approaching 15,000 subscribers just 4 weeks in. So if we could, Amanda, Catherine, Chantel, we drop that link for the latest With That Said newsletter in the comments. We're gathered a lot of perspective around thoughts on the passing in the morning for Queen Elizabeth II. And then we also talk about, of course, National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. Lots of things that you're going to want to see and check out and comment on yourself. So check out that link, and we'd love for you to subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter. Folks, I wish every Monday started almost like this. Love what Sebastian and Seven Senders are doing out there. Really appreciated Greg's take. Thanks for all the great comments. And by the way, Glormar, thank you very much. I really appreciate that feedback. And hey, feedback is certainly a blessing. So y'all keep it coming. But whatever you do, on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton signing off for now. Connect with Sebastian, connect with Greg. Don't miss his supply chain commentary every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You got to connect with him or follow him on LinkedIn to be a part of that. But whatever you do, it's all about deeds, not words, right? Scott Luton challenging you to do good, to give forward, and to be the change that's needed. And with that said, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.